Hey, what's up, you amazing hackers? Hope you're all doing well today. So, let's talk about getting a foothold because that's not an easy thing. Now, first of all, we need to do an nmap scan. That's where it all starts with me, and I do quite a tiered nmap scan. So, I start with a basic nmap scan using the SC and SV flags, and that's basically nmap going to execute its default scripts and also performing banner enumeration. That's my startup, so that's what I'll start with. I'll do it on hexpert.com for now. And then it's going to find some open ports, and it's going to, let me run this on my other terminal real quick. This is going to be a little bit faster. Nmap SC and SV hexpert.com. So while that's running, I can explain you guys some other things, because after this scan, I'm going to perform my next scan, which is going to go a little bit deeper, because as you guys know, nmap by default will only scan the top 1000 ports. In this case, it got us quite a lot of useful information, which we can use later on into getting that foothold. For example, those default scripts have found out that anonymous login for FTP is allowed, which is never a good thing, of course, and we'll explore more about that later. It found some SSH host keys, and it also found on port 80 that we have a HTTP server running. There's no HTTPS, as you can see, and then there's some more filtered ports, and you can see some HTTP as well on these strange ports right here. Now, these are also Python servers, in this case Python web servers. So that's why that banner enumeration is really useful to know what's running on those ports. Now, when I've run that, I'm going to do all of the ports, and then I'm going to do all of the UDP ports as well. After that, after all of that has run, I'm going to be adding in I'll also, of course, when I'll be running my scans, you can also control how aggressively it scans by using the T0 through 5 command, and that's basically the timings command. And if you put this on a lower number, it's going to not scan aggressively at all. And if you put this on 5, that's called the insane scanning level. So those are some things that you can do with nmap. There's a lot more that you can do, of course. But after running that, you'll probably have a good overview of the things that you're going to be looking out for. Now, I usually also use the output all flag OA, and that's going to output in all the different formats which nmap can put out in, and then I can give it a name. For example, Hexpert is the site I'm scanning right now, so I give it that name. Alright, all fine and dandy. Nmap's running in the background. Of course, I'm not going to wait for it to do nothing. Nikto is also a tool that I can run, and especially on all of the different ports, not just on port 80, but I can also run Nikto on this specific port, of course. All I have to do is enter nikto-host, and then I can also enter the same for port. So hexpert.com in this case. And for the port number, I'm going to do the same thing. And as you can see, Nikto will now start up, and it's going to scan my target. Now, of course, I want to scan all of those different HTTP servers that I have right here. It's very important that you do, because not only will you find that there will probably be differences between the web applications hosted on the same ports, but those differences will be major. It's usually not just an HTTP/HTTPS story, because of course you're going to find something on port 80, port 4 for free, but you might also in this case find something on port 1111, and that's going to be completely unrelated because it's an API that lives on there. So it's really, really important. I'm sorry I keep hammering on this, but always scan everything properly. You have to scan the full picture, because you're creating a puzzle, but you have to find the puzzle pieces as well before you can even start putting the puzzle together. So that's why scanning and enumeration is so important to me. Now I have this server open because I also want to run GoBuster at some point. I know that I have web applications running on that server, so I want to run GoBuster on it as well. So I'll run GoBuster and then I'll type U for the URL that I'm working with, which will be hexpert.com in this case. And I wanted to have a word list as well, of course. In this case, I just don't have that word list yet. So what I can do, and Got Milk, he made a pull request from this. Daniel Meisler, he created this this repository, and in here I often look for. By the way, I love Got Milk's privilege escalation guide. That's why I don't know if they're the same guy, but I doubt it. Anyway, I love his privilege escalation guide, but this is what I really come back to when I want to look for different word lists. In this case, I'm going to look for something discovery or fuzzing, and it's going to be, in my case, I want to have a word list of web content, for example. And in here, it's going to be really important because there is a general word list in here. As you can see, directory lists medium. You can also take the big or the small one, but the more specific you can go, the better. That is very important to realize because, of course, the more specific your word list is, the more it's going to be picking up for that particular technology. So I'm going to pick just any word list from here right now. Usually when it's OSCP, I used to work with this word list. So what I'll do is I'll download this, but not just like this. Of course, I need it on my server. So what I'll do right here is I'll perform the wget command to actually download this, and then I can just enter my URL in here, and there we go. We have our directory word list, so we can run GoBuster on the specific URL hexpert.com with the word list, and then of course I need to enter my word list in there. Now guys, please don't kill my labs. Please don't. I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't be running too many threads at the same time on my labs. So try to keep it low. You can actually set the thread count in here. It's one of the parameters. If we look at GoBuster, you can see that it has a few things already in here, but I think it's -H. Yep, there we go. Now we can see the full list of possibilities in here, and as you can see, GoBuster can also perform basic auth. It's just so you know. But what we're looking for is we're looking for the amount of crawlers or threads in this case. You can actually set that up. Please don't set it up too high. I don't want my service to go down. That's it. When we're running this, of course, GoBuster, and especially if you have a little bit of a bigger list, it's going to take a little bit longer. And especially if you've been keeping to what you've been promising and not killing my servers, it's also going to take a little bit longer. But besides that, you can also do some other things in the meantime. And of course, we've already looked at some of these things like version numbers. You can start looking if there are certain exploits for those version numbers available. And there might be something like a CMS running on here. Then you look for CMS space version number space exploit. And if you do find an exploit, it's important that you also find a working proof of concept. Now, don't give up too easily because proof of concepts will be written for a specific technology and a specific target in mind. If it doesn't hit your target, maybe try to just wonder, okay, do I need to make some changes? Like maybe this is a script with a Linux command while I'm working on a Windows machine. It's that kind of changes that I'm talking about mostly. And most of the time you're going to run into exploit-db, especially if you're doing OSCP. But if you're not doing OSCP and you do find a version number, it's also good to just use exploit-db and just check, because I don't know why, but I just really like the structure that they have going on. Just their search is a little bit confusing to me, but that's just my problem. That's not their problem. Now, we also have the possibility for web exploits like local file inclusions, for example. And you might be thinking that's not important yet, because I'm just able to grab files from the specific server, which I should not be able to grab, but it doesn't have any particular secrets on there yet. But hold that thought for a while. We can also go and have a look at default passwords. For example, right here, my username and password is test, because administrators are kind of lazy sometimes, and they might add in a little bit of a backdoor or a little bit of a username password that's not very strong. Just try default passwords, and if you have a CMS or a certain piece of software in front of you, you can also try looking up that particular software's default credentials. An example I can think of is the login page for a router. Usually those routers have default credentials and you can go and look them up. And that's why it's also so very important that if you have any device that you don't use the default credentials, because everybody knows them. That's very, very bad, of course. So those are a few of the things that you can try. Of course, it doesn't cover everything. It's impossible to cover everything, but I hope I've given you an insight. One last thing I've wanted to give you guys is that you can also, like you see right here, we can anonymously log in to FTP. Now that might not seem important, but if I have a particular document, like this, for example, git ignore global, and I put this on the server, it doesn't allow it at the moment. But if it would allow writing to the server, then I could potentially chain that with my local file inclusion to execute a PHP script, which then in turn could execute a reverse shell. You guys are seeing where I'm going with this. It's always your intention to get that reverse shell and always do it in a proper way. So thank you very, very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this part of the course, this part of the section. And if you have any feedback, feel free to mail it to info@thexssrat.com. Enjoy the assignment.